Hello, I'm Angela Walters from quiltingismytherapy.com and welcome to the bonus video in the Dot to Dot Free Motion Challenge Quilting Along. Throughout this free video series, we've been talking about one of my favorite quilting techniques, dot to dot quilting. We've seen how to use them in blocks, how to combine them to fill irregular spaces, and now I'm going to give you some tips for quilting the optional borders for your panel. As a part of this free video series, I designed a custom panel that you can quilt along with me on. And since I know quilters love adding borders to their quilts, I've designed an optional border panel as well. And in this video, I'm going to give you tips on how to quilt that panel. Now, since we're talking about dot to dot quilting, you might be thinking, well, of course, I'm going to give you some dot to dot quilting techniques for that border, but that's not actually the case. Not every area is perfect for the dot to dot quilting technique. But throughout this video series, I've talked about quilting dot to dot designs in blocks. I haven't really touched on quilting borders with them. But the truth is, it's actually pretty easy. First, let me show you how to use it in those areas, and then we'll talk about that custom border panel. This quilt perfectly illustrates how you can use that dot to dot technique in borders. I'm simply going to use the quilting to divide that border up into squares or triangles and fill those areas in with my favorite dot to dot designs. Whether it's the diamond design that touches some points of the design and not others, or the starburst design that creates beautiful wedges that draw your eye to a point. I love how dot to dot quilting can give your border a geometric look, a beautiful frame, and just looks lovely. You can also use dot to dot quilting in the border corners as well. I love how it adds a geometric, complex look to your quilting, but it's as simple as creating sections and filling them in. But since this technique takes a little time to develop, I prefer to use it in solid fabrics or areas that you're actually going to see the quilting. And in the custom border panel, that's not necessarily the case. So let's check that out. I designed this border panel so that it would look like a piece border, and it's filled with bright, beautiful, bold prints. But the truth of the matter is, if I do some dot to dot quilting in that area, you're not really going to see it anyway. These fake blocks are meant to represent a pieced border. Now, this border panel is actually for the larger panel, and this one is a smaller one. So it has the same design, but two different sizes. Really, these fake blocks are pretty tiny, and it's going to be difficult to put in any really complex looking design. So instead of trying to force that dot to dot quilting technique in these borders, I'm going to use the quilting to kind of highlight the patchwork look of the border panel, and for the larger blocks, maybe throw in some simple dot to dot quilting. My whole goal with designing this one panel was to make it look like you took a lot of time to piece that border strip. So the different colors of fabrics give it that patchwork kind of look. In this busier fabric, you're really not going to see a lot of the quilting. So this is the place to use a favorite filler design or something that you're comfortable with quilting. But if you do want to make it look like you did invest time in piecing this border, you can use echo quilting to separate out some of the sections. I have this little quilted example here, and we can see in the background around those blocks, I did a swirly design, a favorite of mine, a go-to design that I feel comfortable quilting. But then in the skinnier portions of the border, I did some echo quilting. Stitched along the fake seam of that border and added some echo quilting and left the center unquilted. It helps give it a little separation from the rest of the blocks and gives it that look that you took the time to piece it. The white blocks in the bigger border panel have a little bit more room, so you could try adding a little bit of dot to dot quilting like I did here. Nothing too complex or overwhelming because there's not a lot of room for it to develop. So in this example, I just quilted a simple line that goes from the outer corner to the middle and back on out. Having that denser filler around the outside of it's really going to make that block pop out. But if you want to add a little bit more quilting to those blocks, you can definitely get a little bit more advanced with it. In this example, I quilted some wedges that start from the middle of the side and fill in that whole space. Again, just a simple way to use this dot to dot technique in those irregularly shaped areas. In this example, I kind of built off it a little bit more, adding an echo line on the inside. I just love how it shows that no matter how big your block is, you can fit it in and make it as advanced or as easy as you'd like. But if you're quilting along with me on the panel and you finished everything else and you're just ready to be done with this border, you can keep it as simple as just connecting those points to create a square kind of shape. I think what makes this look awesome is that dense quilting around it that makes the outside pop out. But again, these aren't large blocks, so if I'm working on that smaller panel, I might just leave the blocks unquilted altogether. Now in the other black portion, if you wanted, you could add some wishbone designs like I've done here, or you could just quilt that swirl over the whole thing. The great news is that if you're quilting this panel, the center is going to shine, and while this border does add a lovely colorful effect, the quilting's not going to really show up. So use this as an opportunity to use a design that feels more comfortable to you. So whether you highlight the blocks, whether you fill it in with all over design, or add some echoing, it's going to look great. If you're quilting along with me, go ahead and finish up those borders, and you should be done with your whole entire panel. If you've watched all the videos in this series, I hope that you're feeling confident in your quilting, and you're feeling proud of yourself for finishing it. The truth of the matter is, it takes practice to get better at quilting, but practice is so much more fun when you can do it with others. If you haven't watched any of the earlier videos, be sure to do that because we start with this technique from the very basics and build off of it. And it's just a great way to practice a technique that's going to be used in a lot of your quilts. Now this video is the end of the Dot to Dot Free Motion Challenge Quilting Along. And if you finish your quilt and you're thinking, I'd like to do some more, you can check out all my previous Free Motion Challenge Quilting Along video series. Just check out my website, quiltingismytherapy.com, or visit my YouTube channel. And while you're at it, join the Free Motion Challenge Quilting Along Facebook group and share pictures of your progress. I love seeing what you all do with these videos. Well, have fun quilting the borders of your panel and using dot to dot in all areas of your quilts. And I'll see you with another Free Motion Challenge Quilting Along soon. Until then, everyone, happy quilting.